Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And it's the end of week one already. I can't believe it. We're on to week two, but I'm going to be talking about what happened week one. We had some upsets. We had some great games. I'm going to be talking about everything, the stars of the week, and the guys that didn't perform so well. So let's start with Thursday night, Chiefs, Texans. Chiefs showed why they're the best team in the league, 34-20. Win over the Texans. It wasn't that close. They were dominating the whole game in every facet. Mahomes, it was interesting, though, because Mahomes was nothing special this game. Not bad at all. He completed 24 of 32 for 211 yards, which I think is a little deceiving. He was not forced to make too many tough throws all game and was kept, and the pocket was kept very clean for him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was a star of the week for Kansas City, very much so. A lot of production. The Chiefs' running game looked very, very strong, and that's something that we weren't used to last year. It adds a whole new element to this offense, which is very, very scary, considering it was arguably already the best offense in the NFL. Kelsey, Hill, and Watkins all found the end zone this week, which is very encouraging for fantasy owners. And those are the three stars on that offense. So, just all around, that Chiefs offense was clicking on all cylinders. Arguably, the one guy that was not fully clicking were Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, but they got things together. I'm not too concerned about it. Deshaun Watson was okay. He couldn't really save his surroundings, though. It was like a guy swimming trying to pull the Titanic up. Beyond Will Fuller, the offense was just struggling to do anything. They dinked and dunked for the majority of the game. They just couldn't do much. It seemed like that offense was missing DeAndre Hopkins from last year, which I wasn't sure if they were going to be, but it looked like they might be. So, David Johnson did have a promising night. Best we've seen him play since his prime in Arizona, but looked like the Texans were missing DeAndre Hopkins, looked like they were missing something. And the Chiefs, they showed why they're the best team in the NFL. Their offense looked great. Defense looked pretty solid as well. So, yeah. That's what I have to say about Thursday night. Now we're moving on to the 1 o'clock window. We got a lot of games here, starting with the first one. Seahawks 38, Falcons 25. Russell Wilson shined. He was one of my 3 top quarterbacks this week. We'll get to 2 of them later. Russell Wilson had a great, great game. Just Pete Carroll let him do his thing, and that's what I've said. If Pete Carroll lets Russell Wilson do what he needs to do to win, they're going to win a lot, because Russell Wilson is a top 2 quarterback in the NFL, maybe even the best quarterback in the NFL. Finally Wilson had some help around him. We saw DK Metcalf get really involved, Tyler Lockett get really involved, Chris Carson get really involved, and it was all very encouraging to see. And when Wilson was given those weapons, he totally performed. And when he was given the power to do what he can with that offense, he totally performed. They put up 38 points. It was a great week for Russell Wilson. The Falcons secondary looked very bad, could not match up with the Seahawks weapons. Matt Ryan looked pretty good. So did Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage, surprisingly. They all had over 100 yards. That passing attack looked very strong. They were taking advantage of the Seahawks secondary, which I thought was much improved. Maybe not, but Gurley, mediocre debut. We were looking forward to that. I wasn't too concerned about it, though. Expect him to get more carries in the Falcons matchup next time, when Ryan doesn't have to throw the ball 54 times like he did in this game to keep up with the Seahawks offense that was just clicking on all cylinders. My one concern about that Falcons offense, though, that Falcons O-line looked poor. Seahawks front seven, which is not good. It's a weak spot in their roster, was taking advantage of it. They were able to get pressure. So what happens when you go against the Steelers or something like that, and they just tear your offensive line apart? So that was a concern, but Seahawks definitely looked like a strong contender. I think they solidified themselves as Super Bowl contenders after this week. So yeah, next, our third game, another Sunday, 1 o'clock, Bills, Jets, AFC East matchup. Bills won 27-17. That score is not reflective of this game. It was not a 10-point game. It was more like a 30-point game in the way these two teams played. I think the Jets showed that they're the worst team in the league. They've got the worst coach in the league. Very bad roster. Sam Darnold is good. I don't think he's great, but he played poorly in that game. Josh Allen was dominant early, very early, and he was rushing for touchdowns, rushing left and right, making some good throws. He made a couple of mistakes towards the later end of the game, which prevented the score again from being like a 40-10. But Bills won the possession battle by 20 minutes. Allen ran the ball 14 times for 57 yards. Stephon Diggs was promising, 9 targets, 86 yards, did not get a touchdown, but he was involved in that offense, which I like to see. Singletary disappeared. As I predicted, Moss had a good game. He got the red zone touches. I don't know. I'm sorry if you're a Singletary fantasy owner, but called it. Bills looked good on offense for the most part, again. And here's what I'm questioning. Is the Bills' defense very good, or is the Jets' offense just that bad? And I think it's a little of both. I think the Bills' defense did look good. Sam Darnold really, really struggled. He had a 37 PFF grade this week, which is awful. And Sam Darnold struggled. The weapons around him struggled. Le'Veon Bell is injured. Jets' defense was terrible, could not stop anything. They have Adam Gase as their head coach. I think the Jets are the worst team in the NFL right now. And the Bills are definitely playoff contenders. They looked strong last week. I just want to see some less mistakes from Josh Allen going forward. Next, we got another division matchup, Bears-Lions. This was a weird game. Bears won 27-23, but that's not what we would have projected at the start of the fourth quarter. Lions were dominant at the start of the fourth quarter. They had a 98% chance to win the game, and they did what they needed to. But then DeAndre Swift happened. He thought he secured the game-winning touchdown, and that was the game. He dropped it. But, Matthew Stafford had a pretty good debut. Not great. Definitely would have felt a little better if he got that win. Lions had a decent game. They just needed to hold on. Their defense just failed them at the end. Trubisky, fourth quarter, he kind of saved his job there. He went from terrible in the first 3 quarters to not looking so bad in the fourth. I thought for a moment we were about to see an appearance from Nick Foles in the next Bears game, but I think we're sticking with Mitch Trubisky. He really got things done in that last quarter, brought his team back, 3 touchdowns from Trubisky in the fourth. Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, both looked very good this week. It was promising from the Bears. That's what I wanted to see, especially that fourth quarter. If they can carry that on, they're definitely playoff contenders. Not as I predicted the Bears to have a very disappointing year, and they might be proving me wrong a little bit, but we'll have to see. I don't think they're going to be able to come back from 3 touchdowns every game. So I'm excited to watch the Bears next week to get a better idea of what we're going to be seeing regularly from this team. But I think it was a little bit easier for this Bears offense considering the defense of the Lions. Missing Jamie Collins after he head-butted the ref or whatever you want to call that. And Lions' top 3 corners were missing, so that's not good. Bears had definitely an easier matchup on that defense for the Lions. They're not just going to be able to do that against every defense, but still promising performance from Mitch Trubisky in that the fourth quarter of that game. So yeah, next we've got Patriots Dolphins, another AFC East matchup. We just talked about Bills Jets. Patriots, guess who's 1-0? Bill Belichick and Cam Newton. Guess who's not? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Patriots rolled 21-11 over the Dolphins, and we aren't sure if Cam Newton can stay healthy. But I tell you what, he was healthy this week. We saw some Superman things from Cam Newton. He scrambled 15 times for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't have expected that to start the week. He was looking like Cam of old. He added a lot to this offense. That was a lot of fun to see. I could see this offense being very tough to stop because on the plays where Belichick was able to scheme Edelman open, Edelman was able to get the ball from Cam Newton. And when nothing was available, Cam Newton would just be able to scramble. And that's the difference between Tom Brady and Cam Newton. On those plays where nothing is open, Tom Brady can't just run for 10 yards or 5 yards or even 3. He's going to have to sit in the pocket and throw it away or dump it off. But Cam Newton is able to, that's why he was so efficient in the passing game, only missing 4 throws all game, because he's able to make that decision. Do I pass to Edelman or do I run? Or Edelman or any of the other receivers. So I like that fit a lot for Cam Newton in New England. I think Belichick used him very well. So that was a lot of fun to watch. Their running backs in New England did not perform too much. their value in fantasy definitely decreases. Dolphins offense did not look too good. Ryan Fitzpatrick struggled to get much done with the New England secondary. Jordan Howard struggled. Matt Breida was okay. Myles Gaskin, waiver wire pickup if you're in a deeper league. So that could be interesting. But, it did not help, obviously, that Devontae Parker went down with an injury midway through the game. Preston Williams struggled against the best corner in the NFL. I think the main story of this was Cam was Superman, and Patriots are looking like a top 10 team. They're 1-0. I think they're making the playoffs this year. I predicted them to win the division. It's looking like that could come to fruition. So that was the Patriots Dolphins. Patriots had a great game. Next, we have another weird game. We have Washington 27, Eagles 17. What happened to the Eagles? They were up 17-0. I was sitting there like, wow, this Eagles team looks great. Carson Wentz looks really good. But that was for about the first 20 minutes of the game. Wentz somehow started out 14-7, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he finished 10 of 25 for 88 yards and 2 interceptions. Like, what? They just collapsed. Carson Wentz was sacked 8 times. I think part of that is definitely due to a credit to that Washington front seven. Chase Young shined this week, lived up to the hype as that number 2 pick, a stud prospect. But the pressure on Wentz was also as a result of the cluster injuries on that offensive line for the Eagles, which was definitely a huge problem this week, and it was exposed by Washington. The Eagles' offense, we just talked about, their offensive line was bad. It was pretty disappointing all around, besides Dallas Goedert, who had a good week. Deshaun Jackson let fantasy owners down. He had a great game last year against Washington week 1, but not so much this year. Miles Sanders was out. Boston Scott did not do too much. Jalen Reagor had a couple plays. Nothing too exciting on that Eagles offense that I'm excited for, looking forward to. But there was some stuff to be excited about with Washington. I wasn't too impressed by the offense. Haskins played okay, missing some throws here and there. But it was nice to see the ball spread out between their guys on offense, Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, Logan Thomas, all seeing their fair share of targets, which was good to see. And so for me, the story of this game was the mismatch of an elite defensive front against a beaten-up offensive line of the Eagles. And I think Washington's just going to bulldoze through a couple teams with their defensive line alone. So I'm excited about this Washington team. Dwayne Haskins was one of my breakout quarterbacks this year, and I think we saw some flashes of good from him this week. So I'm excited to watch the Redskins going forward. Washington going forward. But yeah, next, we got an AFC matchup. AFC South this time. And what will you look at that? Jaguars 27, Colts 20. Biggest upset of the week, in my opinion. And would you look at that? Jacksonville got a win. Indianapolis just completely went down in flames this week. Colts offense was disappointing. Rivers looked like, even with a good offensive line, which we thought maybe, because those turnovers came from the fact that he was always under pressure, having to make decisions that could have been questionable because the Chargers' offensive line was so bad. But even with this good offensive line in Indianapolis, he still turned the ball over. So I'm not too excited about what's going on with Phillip Rivers. I mean, Paris Campbell was involved in the passing game, which was nice to see. Marlon Mack got injured, but they've got Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, who both had good weeks. That Colts offense is one that I'm questioning how good it's going to be for this year. I don't know. It was against the Jacksonville defense that is like no talent on it. CJ Henderson for the Jaguars did play well, though. But Colts defense, to me, also is overrated. They've got Darius Leonard, and that's about it. They don't have too much. DeForest Buckner also. But I think it's definitely a bottom half defense, maybe bottom 10 defense in the league. And people, for some reason, look at it like it's a top half, top 10 defense in the league. So, Jaguars, though, I liked what I saw. Gardner Minshew had a pretty good game, not missing too many throws, but James Robinson was the lead back. He was relatively productive on the ground. So, yeah, I liked what I saw from the Jaguars. I liked what I saw from CJ Henderson. I think even it looked like they were getting rid of all their talent, but 1-0 right now. We'll see how long they can go with competing with the better teams. So, yeah, this will be a fun team to watch. definitely keep an eye on the Jaguars. Next, we've got the biggest blowout of the week. Ravens, Browns. Ravens scored 38 points. Browns scored 6. It was a blowout. Lamar Jackson played great. Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, they were stars. They played amazing. Running game was the part that wasn't looking as good, not quite as efficient as last season. Lamar Jackson was making great throws left and right. That was the most impressive part for me, those throws from Lamar Jackson, not the rushing game, which most people would think. The Ravens defense looked really, really good, shutting down the Browns. Calais Campbell made an immediate impact. He was up in Baker Mayfield's face constantly throughout the game. Patrick Queen had a pretty solid game. A lot of tackles, forced fumble. He had a sack also. The Browns secondary was a big concern for me. They looked really bad last week against the Ravens. There were just mismatches everywhere created by Ravens receivers, by Willie Snead, Marquise Brown, Miles Boykin were just getting open with ease. And, the defensive line was not bad for the Browns. That was probably the brightest spot for them. But the Browns offense was ugly. Rushing game was maybe the only minor bright spot. Chubb and Kareem Hunt were able to rush the ball relatively effectively, and you should be rushing the ball with them because that's the best running back duo in the league, arguably. Baker did not play well. OBJ didn't play well. Jarvis Landry didn't play particularly well either. The O-line wasn't very good. It was just a disappointing performance from the Browns, and part of me is wondering, is that because the Ravens defense is a top 3 defense in the NFL? It could be, but they just really, really struggled in all facets, and that's a big concern for me. I'm nervous for the Browns this year. I like what I saw from the Ravens a lot. It was 2 completely different stories on Sunday with these 2 teams. I'm excited to see what both these teams do next week. Are the Ravens going to keep up their high? Is the Browns going to keep on their low? Are they going to rebound? But yeah, we'll have to see. But that's the Ravens-Browns game. Next, we have a game that was more exciting than I thought it was going to be. Raiders-Panthers, 34-30. Raiders won. I wouldn't have guessed that score. I thought it was going to be a crapshoot. I didn't think the offenses were going to do that. But now I look at it and it makes sense. The offenses had no issue. The defenses had issue. They weren't good at all. The Panthers defense, we know they spent all 9 of their draft picks on defensive players, and there was a reason for that. It's because their defense just wasn't good. And the Raiders defense, not at all either. Damon Arnett was getting burnt left and right. And what was interesting to me in that Panthers offense was all of Carolina saw the ball pretty equally. I thought DJ Moore was going to be the heavy number 1 guy. No, that was not the case at all. Raiders, Derek Carr looked pretty good. I mean, Derek Carr is a top half quarterback in my opinion. Hopefully Henry Ruggs is okay. Hunter Renfrow looked pretty good. But the story of the Raiders offense was Josh Jacobs, 25 carries, 3 touchdowns. He just had a monster week. Fantasy owners that had Josh Jacobs probably won you your matchup. He won me my matchup. He was the saving grace of my team. So yeah, it was definitely a fun game to watch. We saw some back and forth there at the end. Star of the week there is probably Josh Jacobs. And yeah, Teddy Bridgewater, he adjusted well to the system. I enjoyed watching that game quite a bit. I'm excited to see what these teams do from here on out. I think Panthers could rebound. I think Raiders could have some success this season. We'll see. And next, we've got the Packers, Vikings, 43-34. The Packers dominated this game on offense. The Vikings could not stop them. Aaron Rodgers looked amazing. Vintage Aaron Rodgers performance. 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, was making all types of amazing throws that you don't see from many quarterbacks in the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers just had an amazing week. I was very, very impressed. And tearing up the secondary, him and Devontae Adams had an amazing connection. Devontae Adams, 14 receptions, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was great. Aaron Rodgers was great. Devontae Adams was great. Marcus Valdes-Scantling was very good. Allen Lazard was very good. Aaron Jones was pretty good, 16 carries, 66 yards. It was just clicking on all cylinders for that Packers offense against Vikings cornerbacks that were just really struggling. On the Vikings side of things, they still put up 34 points. It was good. The rushing attack was not the best. Alexander Madison actually had more success than Dalvin Cook did. 50 yards on 6 carries versus 50 yards on 12 carries. Adam Thielen had a great week. He did everything right in that Minnesota Vikings offense, and Kirk Cousins did a very good job getting the ball to him. Kirk Cousins had an interception. Wasn't the biggest thing in the world, but Packers definitely are looking like a Super Bowl playoff contender. I was very impressed by them this week. And yeah, I liked what I saw from the Vikings a lot too. So this should be an interesting matchup to going forward in the NFC North. Maybe we could see it in the playoffs. But yeah, next we got Chargers Bengals. Chargers took the W here. Should have been a tie. Should have gone to overtime. Missed field goal. I felt bad for Joe Burrow. Welcome to Cincinnati, buddy. He's used to winning at LSU. Not so much the case in Cincinnati. But Chargers ran the ball a lot. And that was one thing I noticed. They weren't getting the ball into Tyrod Taylor's hands and telling him to throw the ball. And that's kind of what I predicted. We saw 33 carries on the ground. Last year, record-setting Ravens offense carried the ball 39 times per game, and the Chargers just carried it 33 times. And that opens up a ton of opportunity for Eckler and Joshua Kelly, who is a waiver wire pickup this week, to get the ball on the ground. So that was interesting to me, and I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of running the ball, a lot of good defense from the Chargers, which we saw this week. The Bengals only scored 13 points. And so, yeah, the Chargers defense is going to have to carry this offense. Joe Burrow had a pretty strong opening game debut. He in that last possession where he was bringing him back, he looked like a veteran quarterback. He was getting the ball where he needed to get it, right on time, right on target. And it was intriguing performance from Joe Burrow. I liked what I saw. He made the best of his situations because immediately he was getting pressured by that by that Chargers front seven, but he stayed calm. He did what he needed to do. And unfortunately for him, they just couldn't pull out the win. But yeah, I think Bengals are definitely a promising team to look out for the future. I'm not loving what I saw from the Chargers this week either. I think it's not going to work against every team. But yeah, that was an interesting game. Next, we've got Saints, Buccaneers. This was my game of the week, or most interesting game. One of my best bets was Saints minus 3.5, and that was correct. They dominated the Buccaneers for the most part. And which is interesting because I actually think, the main story of this was Brady versus Breeze, and I think Brady actually did outplay Breeze. Breeze had a rough week. He was missing throws that he normally would make. And for me, Brady had some very good throws and very good plays and some very bad ones. So it was interesting to see that dynamic there. The Saints, again, the Brady outplayed Breeze, but just the rest of the Saints outplayed the rest of the Buccaneers. I think they weren't clicking on all cylinders. The Saints, Kamara had a good game. Very good game, actually. Michael Thomas did struggle, though. He got injured with a high ankle sprain that he's going to have to try and... He says he's going to try and play through it. I don't know how... We'll see how that goes. But that defense of the Saints was very strong. There were some key missed plays on that offense also, and I think that's what ultimately derailed the Buccaneers. The Saints were able to put up almost 41 points. They put 34. If that last touchdown wasn't reversed, it would have been 41. But Scotty Miller looks like a guy that Brady loves to target, maybe a guy in your deeper league that you want to pick up off the waivers. Could be interesting. I think it might be a little bit of a concern for Godwin and Evans in fantasy because Evans really struggled against Lattimore, which has been historically the case. But yeah, it was an interesting game. Game of the week. Saints made it not close. I'm not too concerned about the Buccaneers, though, because the Saints just had a very, very good game. And yeah. Next, we've got Rams, Cowboys. Rams took the W 20-17 in this one. And I'm going to say it. I think the Rams are a top 10 team. The weight of Gurley is off their shoulders. They can get back to being the team that they want to be, the team that they were 2 years ago, the Super Bowl team, a team that bases its offense around running the ball up your gut. They got back to that identity, and I think that's why they won against the Cowboys. Malcolm Brown was the leader of that backfield. He was the guy. He was able to take up the carries, unlike Gurley was last year, and he just played better in all facets than Cam Akers did. So I pick him up off your waivers, and I like what I saw just because they were able to get back to that identity. Because really, what's changed? Yes, their offensive line is a little bit worse, but I think Rams are a top 10 team, a team that was scary. I like the Cowboys. I thought they were a top 10 team, but the Rams, they handled them pretty well. McVay did a very good job scheming, so Goff felt comfortable at all times. He was able to make some very easy completions on bootlegs, given relatively clean pockets throughout the entire game. Robert Woods was very involved, as I predicted, especially early in the game. So that was a very convincing offensive performance that was centered around the run, and McVay scheming up easy completions for Jared Goff. But, Dak, on the other hand, had an okay game. I wouldn't say good, but Zeke was the main bright point of that offense. Considering the circumstances, he's very consistent. Lamb had a solid debut. Don't have too much to say about that offense. Donald, absolute beast. He threw around that offensive line for the Cowboys, but McCarthy, again, made some questionable calls at the end of the game. Not a huge concern for me. I don't think he's going to be Jason Garrett. I think it'll be interesting to see, but I'm not too concerned for the Cowboys. I'm more praising the Rams in this one. I think the Rams did a very good job. They got back to what I wanted to see them get back to, and I liked what McVay did a lot this week. So I like the Rams. I think they're a top 10 team. I think they could be competing in that for the playoffs. We've got a very tough division there. 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals. Yikes. All right. We got our Monday night games. Steelers, 26, Giants, 16. Big Ben is back, and he helped the Steelers to a nice win over the Giants. I think this is what the Steelers team should have looked like last year if they just didn't have trash Mason Rudolph and Delvin Hodges at quarterback last year. So, Roethlisberger's final numbers were 21-32, 229 yards, 3 touchdowns, which was very good. It was promising. He didn't do anything special, but I think I had him as the 14th best quarterback. I think he played like an average to a slightly above average quarterback in that game. Benny Snell shined in that offense when Connor went down. He got a lot of touches. I think his fantasy value definitely goes up this week. And as I predicted, Deontay Johnson was the lead guy in that Steelers offense, getting the highest target share. And Juju Smith-Schuster scored 2 touchdowns. So we saw good performances from everybody week 1 on that offense. I think it was important to get that momentum rolling for the Steelers offense going forward in this season. Daniel Jones had some ups and downs throughout the game. 26 of 41, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So, the Dupree forced pick wasn't really his fault, though, better ball protection probably could have been utilized. But, the other one was definitely his fault. He didn't notice TJ Watt was in coverage. Still, Jones played mostly well against one of the best defenses in the NFL, and front seven that was just constantly getting after him. And I think Steelers, again, they solidified themselves as a top 3 defense. I had no doubts about it, but they just showed it this week. Front seven is very, very scary. Should be fun to watch this team going forward. Giants, it was a convincing win for the Steelers. Not a bad performance from the Giants. I think it was a good game for both sides. One to be happy about if you're a fan of either team. So next, we've got our final game. Titans 16, Broncos 14. Low-scoring game here. I projected it to be a close game. It was that. I had a 1-point difference. It was a 2-point difference. So Steven Gostkowski, though, missed 3 field goals, which is rough. And I think that if he made them, it would have been 25-14. Not nearly as close, but still. The Broncos ended up with the lead in the final. Impressive. It was a pretty good drive from Ryan Tannehill there at the end. He got the Titans to the red zone. Gostkowski was given one last chance. He just missed 3 field goals before that. He got it in. He won the game for the Tennessee Titans. Tannehill, mixed game. He had some ups and some downs, which is okay. Henry carried the ball 31 times, which is ridiculous. If he keeps that production up, fantasy owners cheer that have Henry. Not super productive on those carries this week, but I don't think that's always going to be the case. But the Titans are going to keep needing to get Henry the ball because that's their identity, and that's what carried them to the AFC Championship game last year. The Broncos offense was interesting to me. Jerry Jeudy got involved. Drew Lock had a decent game. I think we're going to need to see better if they're going to be as good of a team as I think. I think they're going to be a 10-6 team this year. And if they're going to do that, they're going to need to step it up a little bit. But, Gordon, he handled the entire workload following halftime. 78 yards, touchdown on 15 carries after Phillip Lindsay got hurt. But yeah, the Broncos offense was not bad. I'd like to see a little more next week. But Titans had a very good game. So I thought it was an interesting game. That was one of my favorite, the games that I was most excited for. But yeah, Titans came out on top 16-14. Probably could have been more than that if Gostkowski made those field goals. But, it was a good game. So that was my recap of week 1 of the NFL season. I can't believe it's over already. I'm looking forward to week 2. Tomorrow I've got my pick'em for week 2 coming out. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you stuck around, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, thanks so much for listening. Peace.